I know that at the time of Mr. Obama's presidency, before he was elected a second time, I predicted that the Obama presidency would wane because of his attack on Jewish people being in Yerushalayim. I have seen videos trying to describe or describing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Most of those videos are made by enemies of the Jewish people. I will give you, for instance, they claim to be even-handed. They're not even-handed. The last one that I saw denies the existence of the Torah. It says that we probably came from Canaanites, from Phoenicians, and that we were a Phoenician tribe. The truth of the matter is that we are closely related to all Semitic peoples, including the people of Iraq, Syria, and even the Arabian Peninsula. Our cousins, the Arabs, are very similar to us in their DNA. This is not the same DNA as the Phoenicians. To say that we are Phoenicians at birth and so on is just not only an inaccuracy, it's false. That's number one. Number two, the Bible, the Torah, has been argued about for centuries. All of these theories about the 6th century being when the Torah came to be about have been debunked. Our scholars have gone ahead, methodically taken apart all of their arguments. There are so many examples that are given. You have to just read the books written by Rabbi Avigdor Miller and others, who show you that the customs of Israel did not come in the 6th century before the Common Era. And furthermore, the whole historical record, according to historians, is false. It's based on false information. When I was trying to get a job in Detroit, I was interviewed by a Rabbiner doctor, a German rabbi who also had a doctorate in history. And we discussed history, and I told him I had problems with the historians in how they date things. And he says, what kind of a problem? I gave an instance, for example, that according to my sources, our sources, the traditional sources, the temple was destroyed in the year 422 of the Common Era. But in the history books, they say it's 586. So he told me it has to be 586. Why does it have to be 586? I didn't ask him because I was having the interview with him. Because he, despite being a rabbi, believed in the modern historical dating, because he was impressed by the professors that he had. He had no other reason, he had no reason to doubt them. But in doing so, he doubted the veracity of the Jewish history. Of course, I don't know enough about ancient documents to make an opinion, a learned opinion. So these were things that bothered me for a long time. Recently, last couple of years, I've become familiar with the writings of Alexander Hool, Hool, who in his book, under the challenge of Jewish history, he debunks all of the historians and their historical dating. The historical dating has no actual fact. There's not a continuous calendar that you have from the Egyptians to the Babylonians to the Persians to the Greeks to the Romans. There's no calendar that's continuous. And the claims of the different kingdoms also have been falsified. The Babylonians falsified their kingdom dynasties. The Egyptians created false dynasties, as did the Persians. Everybody made up dynasties to show that they were the number one, the oldest, the baddest, the most wise, and so on. Everybody had their own history that they wanted to show off to the rest of the world. Alexander Hoole went through the proofs for the dating process, and he showed that it's clear that the only dating source that is correct using the dates of actual contracts that were written by Jews who had the dates, the secular dates, you would call them English dates, but the secular dates of the Egyptians, and the Hebrew dates or the Babylonian dates based upon the moon. The only source that explained or had exact dates corresponding to these contracts is the dating system of the Seder Olam, which means that the temple was destroyed in the year 422 of the Common Era, before the Common Era, and around 68 or 69 or 70, depending upon how you calculate things, the temple was destroyed. We have it that it's 420 years, that will make it 68. That is the date according to our people. Rambam has it at 69 because he counts that the first week of creation is year 1. Year 2 is right after Shabbos. And I guess our dating system has the first year to be right after we got chased out of Gan Eden. That begins the first year of Adam. That's year 1. That's how we get to 68 of the Common Era. It's the same year, just how you date things. At any rate, why am I saying all of this? The Jewish people have a more correct and accurate dating system, and the claims that are found in the Bible have just about all of them have been verified. The archaeological places have been verified. The events have been verified. All of the questions of the Bible critics, just about all of them have been destroyed and answered. You know, the story of the 5 kings versus the 4 kings that's mentioned in the book of Genesis around the time of Abraham, well, they found evidence of the 5 kings and the 4 kings in other documents around the same time, same names, and so on and so forth. The Torah has it right. 5 kings existed, the 4 kings existed. They fought in the central, southeastern part of Israel. This is just a few things, few items, but every item that's found in the Bible has been verified. Could not have been a later document, and all the arguments that these things were written after the fact have all been destroyed. Every single one of those arguments have been destroyed by Jewish scholars, and yet they persist in telling the lie. The people who do those videos are lying to you. The Torah is an ancient document dating 12 to 1300 years before the Common Era. It's 3,336 years old. That's from the time that the Torah was given. And we know who our teachers were. We know the names of the teachers. We know the names of their students. We know the names of the prophets. There's evidence for all of those things. There is no evidence that the Iliad ever happened, the that the Trojan War ever happened. There's no evidence for that, but everybody believes it. The Torah, on the other hand, there is evidence, and the secular world doesn't want to believe it, and therefore makes claims for what it wants to be the reality. We are not descendants of the Canaanites, nor was the Torah written in the 600. And it's ludicrous to say the Jewish people, first among all the nations of the world, fought to keep their Torah. If the Torah was just imposed upon us by some foreign body telling us about some strange man by the name of Moses, and this Moses didn't exist, no one would have kept those commandments, and no one would have died for those commandments. The fact that the Jewish people were willing to die rather than worship idols shows you the depth of their commitment, shows you that they believe the Torah to be factual. That Daniel and his colleagues refused to eat non-kosher meat, which could have caused the death to them, shows you the depth of their commitment. The fact that they did not worship an idol, would rather get burned to death, shows you that this is something they believed very deeply. They would not have done so for something that was artificial. And they were smart enough to know that this was imposed on people 100 years earlier. Why am I telling you this? I saw this video trying to explain how the Jews got here. No, the Jews didn't just get here. The Jews were here 1,300 years before the Common Era. They've been around Israel continuously for over 3,000 years. Even after the destruction of the temples, there's always been a significant number of Jews in the land of Israel. Tens of thousands, but a significant number. Jews always remained in their land, in the Holy Land. We've never completely left the land. We might not have been in control, we might have been brutalized, but we've always been here ever since we came 3,000 years ago. 3,396 years ago, we came into the land. That's how long we've been in the land of Israel. It is our land, historically our land. And then they go ahead and try to tell us what happened in the 20th century. And they go ahead and belittle the murderous nature of the Arab League against the Jews and the pogroms in which they killed hundreds of Jews. They belittle that. But they call Begin a terrorist because of Deir Yassin. Begin didn't go to Deir Yassin to murder 117 men, women, and children. Deir Yassin was the village through which the road to Jerusalem would go around, and the villagers would kill all the truck drivers bringing food for the people of Jerusalem. They had to uproot those villages. They asked them to move. They announced that they were coming in and they have to move. They actually announced it. The Arabs refused to move, and not only did they refuse to move, the soldiers put themselves in with the men, women, and children who were helpless. And because there was fighting between the soldiers and the defenders, so a lot of people were killed because the soldiers chose to be among the women, and they used women and children as their shields. But there was no choice. You had to get rid of those soldiers because they were choking the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was in hunger, starving, and had no medicines. They had to get medicines and food to Jerusalem, and the villages of Deir Yassin prevented that. They had to capture Deir Yassin. It was no other way. They had to capture it. The soldiers of Deir Yassin put themselves behind the skirts of women and they had to be eliminated in the process of the fighting. Many died. Begin and his men were not coming to kill women and children, as the New York Slimes reported, because New York Slimes has always accepted the words of our enemies against the Jews, especially when Jews are fighting for their lives. Just look at the New York Slimes today. They criticize Israel because Israel has the audacity of defending itself. The United States started a war with people 6,500 miles away from them because they were protecting Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda had caused the deaths of 2,900 Americans, caused the tremendous horrors of 9/11, made it impossible for anybody to ever go on a plane without delays of having to go through machines, X-ray machines. 9/11 was a horrific time. It was the most horrific scene I've ever seen. But 2,900 only, I can't say only, but 2,900 Americans died that day. And this was enough cause to invade Afghanistan, a country of about 20 million people. And hundreds of thousands of Afghanis died in that war and the subsequent parts to the war. We were there for a long, long time, close to 20 years, 18 years. The number of civilian deaths per relative to military deaths was about 3 to 1. If we got 10,000 enemy soldiers, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, there were 3 times as many. So there were 40,000 deaths and 10,000 soldiers among them. So for each soldier, they got 3 civilians dead. And that was okay. Israel has a ratio of 1 to 1. There's never been any kind of fighters that for every soldier you only kill 1 civilian. Yet we are called perpetrators of genocide. Just think about that.